Hawkeye, ladies and gentlemen. I guess season 1, episode 1. Never meet your heroes. It's your boy Icon with some Marvel TV for a change. And yeah, so I'm going to be judging this one very harshly. I'm going to be very critical of this series. Why? Because Arrow is my favorite superhero television show, followed by Black Lightning. Arrow is the GOAT, so I feel some kind of way when I see another series about another guy who has a bow and arrow. But with that being said, let's dive right into this and talk about some Hawkeye. So this series, this series takes place. It starts off in the beginning with the Jatari invasion. We're going all the way back to the first Avengers movie, and it shows the moment where Hawkeye was standing on top of a building and he was firing his arrows at the Jatari, and then the moment where he jumped off the building, turned backwards, shot an arrow off into the air, and did all this cool heroic shit. So apparently now we find out there was a girl that was watching him the entire time. I believe her name is Kate. And before the invasion, it shows you Kate, ear hustling on her parents because her parents had got into an argument. And I don't know if they were leaving the city, if they were leaving the country, if they were filing for divorce. I don't know what the situation was. All I know is like the little girl was ear hustling, and she was talking to her dad, and then her dad left, and then the invasion happened. Their apartment got destroyed. Her mom found her, but they never found her dad. We find out later on that the dad actually passed away during the invasion, and then Kate and her mom were having a conversation, and then Kate decided, she was like, oh mom, I need to protect us, I need to protect the family. And then the mom was like, don't worry about that, that's my job, you just worry about being a kid and being you. But she was like, if there's anything I can do for you, she's like, I'm here for you, sweetie. She's like, just let me know what I can do for you. And then Kate said she thought about the thing with Hawkeye jumping off the building, and then Kate was like, I want a bow and arrow. And then we get a montage, an opening beginning montage of her, because that, like, all the montage basically was, it was like when this girl starts doing the stuff that she's doing in the series, the montage was to make sure nobody has any questions about what she can do. It was montages of her doing like jujitsu, like fencing, sword fighting, archery, gymnastics. Like she was doing like all these things because she's rich. It's like, oh, she's rich, now, but we'll get to that later. So she comes from high society, like she has money, so she can afford to do all this stuff. She can afford to be, to do fencing, archery, and swimming, and Olympics, and like gymnastics and all that. She can afford all that. So now, I guess it's, it's present day. What was it? The first Avengers movie came out, what, in 03? Like, not 03, like 2013? They came out a long time ago. So anyway, so it's X amount of years later from, from there. The girl, she's in college, I guess. Like, she's in college now. She's she's in an archery school. She's supposed to compete in an archery competition. She ends up, using one of her arrows to hit a bell, and then she destroyed a tower. She ends, and then like she got in trouble. Then she ended up getting sent home. Well, it was Christmas time anyway, so present day, it's Christmas in New York. The actual Hawkeye, like he's in New York, and he's here with 3 of his kids, because remember, like he had a newborn in Age of Ultron. So I mean, I guess that kid's probably still too small to be taken out, to an excursion to New York. Also, the mom stayed home too, but she called, like periodically. Hawkeye and 3 of his kids, they're in New York celebrating Christmas in New York City. They end up going to a musical. And the musical, this was funny but not needed, but it was still funny. It was basically an Avengers musical about the Jatari invasion, and I'm just like, we need to let the Jatari invasion go. That was a long time ago. But the funny thing about it is, although it's a musical based on the Avengers and what the Avengers did during the Jatari invasion, the play is called Rogers, so I'm like, is it more focused on Steve Rogers? And I was like, that's not fair, especially seeing how like Iron Man was the one that sacrificed himself. I thought that was very weird. It's like, why is it called like Rogers? Why is it not called the Avengers? But anyway, so Hawkeye's watching this play with his kids, and he's not really feeling it because, one, he was there when all this took place, so he feels some kind of way about what he's seeing, and it basically, it reminds me of the scene. If you watch Batman Beyond, there was an episode where Terry McGinnis had taken an old Bruce Wayne to a Batman musical on his birthday. And, the whole thing was just like him, like making fun of the villains and everything, like a superstitious, cowardly lad, like it was just, that's what it reminded me of when I saw it. We find out some things about Hawkeye, because it's like, yeah, like one thing about this first episode, they unsubtly did a whole bunch of things to drive certain points home. And I honestly don't know how I feel about that. Like, a lot of it I felt wasn't necessary, but they still did it. Like, there was a moment where he had zoned out because there was an actress that was playing Natasha Romanoff. And when he saw Natasha, he got nostalgic because obviously that was his best friend, and then she's gone, and then like he really misses her. But he kind of like spaced out, and his daughter was there. She was trying to get his attention, and when his daughter was trying to get his attention, she snapped, and then she snapped her finger, and then he was like, "Oh, what? I'm sorry." And then she goes, "Dad, did you turn your hearing aid off?" And I'm like, we get it. He's old. Like he's been through some stuff. I mean, unless him having a hearing aid is going to mean something later on in the series, I didn't see the point of why it got brought up. It's like, because the thing is like now, whatever he does at this point, you've already put the thought in my mind like he's some feeble old geezer. So I honestly wish they just didn't do that, but I'll forgive it if him having a hearing aid actually becomes something relevant like later on down the line. So, so then like the family, they end up leaving, because he was just like, they ended up leaving the musical because he was like, look, I lived it. It was very uncomfortable for me. And he was like, you know what, kids, let's just enjoy our time in New York City. Let's go see the tree lighting and all this other crazy stuff since we're in New York, so like they left to go do what they had to do. And then throughout the whole thing, there were a lot of people that were acknowledging, Hawkeye, Flint, or whatever. They were acknowledging his efforts in the Jatari invasion. Like he was getting free meals from certain places, because he was a hero. So it kind of made him feel a little bit uncomfortable. But like I said, he's just here in New York just to, like spend time with his kids and enjoy Christmas. So now back to Kate. She ends up going home for the holiday. She goes and visits her mom. And while she's talking to her mom's letting her know that she was like, oh, I heard about what happened at the school. And she's like, I'm not happy about that. They once again mention her many medals and her, like all her accomplishments as far as like athletics and like fighting is concerned. And then her mom drops the bomb on her. Well, she didn't drop the bomb on her, but she told her, she's like, I have something to talk to you about. And basically after her father died, the mom now, like she met somebody new and she's going to remarry, but she didn't tell her daughter that just yet. She was just like, I got something to tell you. But then she was just like, oh, we're going to a charity event tonight, dear. So she said, then when Kate had said, she was like, listen, I'm sorry about what happened at school, but is there a way I can make it up to you? She was like, oh, you can put on that red dress, that's upstairs in your room and come with me to the ball. And then she kind of like made Kate kind of made like an awkward thing out of it. And I was just like, okay, so clearly she's not a fan of the red dress. Because I was like, because y'all made an issue out of that for like no reason. Because if it wasn't a big deal, she'd just put the damn dress on and went to the thing. So then when they actually show her at the charity ball, she's wearing a suit and tie. So I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm like, again, relevance, like there really wasn't a relevance to that, but it's just like that's their way of letting us know that she's most likely lesbian. And unless her being lesbian means something later on in the series, I didn't see the point in doing the whole dress and like suit thing, but whatever. So, so she's at the party. There's this old dude, I forgot his name. He was like Randall the Third or like Randall the Seventh or something. So it's like this rich line of families that they always give their sons like the same name. So they met like the youngest kid. He was like the seventh. And then the old dude who was the third was talking to Kate. And then he was the one who accidentally let it slip that, her mom was remarrying. And then, Kate got mad. She went over to her mom. And then, she was just like, oh, why didn't you tell me about the marriage and everything? And she was like, I was going to tell you, dear, but they didn't make too big a deal out of it. But then like later on, the same old guy, like Randall the Third, whatever, Kate caught him talking to her mom like later on. And it looked like him and her mom were getting into like a heated discussion. So Kate walked up to her mom and she was like, yo, what was that all about? And then she was like, nothing, dear. She's like, I don't know what it was about either. Kate basically wasn't really feeling that. She didn't really trust her mom. So she ended up following the dude to try to find out what was going on with him, what he was up to. And then, when she goes downstairs, she sees that there's like an auction for certain things that rich people, like rich people do auctions. There's an auction going on downstairs. And the same white dude, like Randall the Third or whatever, he's downstairs having a conversation with her mom's fiance. The two of them are talking, and all he said was, he was just like, yo, you need to keep your fiance in check or whatever. It's like, or is your fiance going to be a problem? So Kate, she wants to know what the hell's going on. She's like, yeah, why y'all downstairs talking about my mama? So, and then after that, they end up, for the auction, they ended up showing the sword that belonged to the Ronin. And when they said Ronin, I thought the villain from Guardians of the Galaxy, but apparently that was Hawkeye's name. Because remember in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, when his family had disappeared, he went on that killing spree, and he was wearing like that black costume, and he had that big ass sword that can retract. I don't know if he just threw the stuff in the garbage and like somebody randomly found it, but those rich people had the sword that Hawkeye used to kill all those Asian people, and they even had like his costume, they had his suit, and they were auctioning the whole thing at, you know, like at the auction event. So while they're there, you know, the old dude, like Ronan the Third or whatever, he purchased the sword for like, you know, billions of dollars. And then when the curator said, okay, now we're going to auction the suit, we're going to sell the suit, an explosion happened. And when the explosion happened, like this big hole went in the wall, whatever, people were hurt, like the building was under attack, everything was under attack. And then I guess at that point, because people were coming in, and it's like there were guys that they were like coming in to attack people. And then Kate, she took the suit that, you know, like she took the Ronin suit, because I guess because she's a fan of Hawkeye, I guess, so she knew that it belonged to him. She took the Ronin suit, she put the suit on, and she ended up fighting the attackers, you know, that blew up the building, the charity event. So she's fighting them. She goes out into the street, and then like some thugs, you know, saw her or whatever. They saw her in the costume, and I guess they thought that was Hawkeye, so they tried to fight her then, and like they fought her in the alley. She ended up beating up those guys, and then she was fighting those guys, beating up those guys, and then after she beat up those guys, then there was a moment where she ran from them and jumped in a car, and while she was in a car hiding from those guys, you know, they was actually like, because during the whole thing there was also a dog, like there was a dog. There was a moment where Kate saved the dog from getting run over by a car, and there were news reporters there, and the news reporters caught that, and they caught her doing her heroics in the costume. Now Hawkeye's family, they were at their hotel room, they were watching the news, and they saw her on the news. When Hawkeye saw somebody on TV wearing his costume, of course he had to investigate, so he went down to the scene of the crime to go figure out what was going on. So while he's down there, like I said, like Kate, like she's in a car, she's getting beat up, like the guys had broke through the window, they punched the window, and then Hawkeye shows up. I mean, we all know it was Hawkeye. Hawkeye shows up, he beats up the thugs that are targeting her, he grabs her, takes her to an alley, takes her mask off, and then when he takes the mask off, he looks at her and he's just like, oh shit. He's like, you're just a girl. He's like, you're just like a young girl. And then she looks at him and she's like, oh my God, you're Hawkeye. And then he was like, yeah, I'm Hawkeye, but who the hell are you? Because he don't know who she is. And then, and that's how the episode ended. So, I mean, it was good. Like it was a good episode. You know, I mean, I could always do without the jokes, but that's a problem. That's a Marvel problem in itself. One thing that honestly did bother me, I was under the impression that when we got this Hawkeye series, it was going to be him and his daughter. And his daughter is there. Like, she is there in the city, but it's not about his daughter. It's not about him and his daughter teaming up. It's about him and this random girl who just happens to be a fan of his. And though I do like where it's headed so far, and I don't have a problem with what's happening so far, I think I would have liked it better if it was his daughter. Like if it was a situation where like his daughter, like they're in New York City for Christmas, his daughter witnessed a crime, and now both Hawkeye and his daughter, you know, end up, you know, fighting together to like, you know, to protect the family or something like that, because they did show the scene in Endgame where he was teaching his daughter how to do archery. As far as like a passing of the torch thing goes, that would have made more sense. If this series ends with Kate becoming the new Hawkeye, I'm like, that's a slap in the face to his daughter. That's pretty jacked up. But like I said, but I'm not going to judge so far. But we'll see what happens. They gave us 2 episodes right out the gate, so my review for the second episode will be coming up soon. And like I said, we'll continue to talk about it and see where this whole thing unfolds. But it looks like we're going to be in New York City. It's going to be Christmas for a while, so we'll see what happens. But it's appropriate for the time of year because it's Christmas. It's about to be Christmas here too. So that was it. Like I said, and thank you for tuning in. So again, you know, decent episode so far. Never Meet Your Heroes, and I don't know why it's called Never Meet Your Heroes, because the 2 of them didn't actually have a conversation yet. It would have made more sense to call episode 2 Never Meet Your Heroes if now that Kate meets him for the first time, he turns out to be a complete douchebag and an asshole. But, but we'll see. So check me out on Twitter and Instagram. Check out my YouTube channel because I got my videos for Batwoman. I got my videos for Legends of Tomorrow, Young Justice, and the Flash Armageddon crossover for all you DC fans. But we will continue to do this Hawkeye because I'm interested so far, and I do want to see where it's going. So thanks for tuning in, guys. So until next time for some more Hawkeye action, take care, and I'm out this...